Hey everybody, welcome back to Kick Punched. It's awesome to have you here for I think this is the third video in the Spiderman and Venom series. And so I've got the concept up here, and I'm just taking a look at the concept, and it's been a day or so since I've worked on these videos, so I'm starting to kind of get a better perspective of where I need to go with Venom. So we're going to take a good 20 or 30 minutes or so and just refine our Venom character and get his proportions more matching in line with the concept. And then we'll get his tongue posed and kind of wrapped around the phone, and then we'll move on to Spider-Man. So I'm going to dive into Zbrush. As you can see, his head is probably the right size, but it's stretched up in the wide direction too much. So I need to bring that down and kind of, I think it'll help him to feel just a little bit more stocky. And then we'll start moving the tongue around. So we'll dive into that. Hope everyone's doing well. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't, and hit the notification bell so that you'll get notifications when the new videos drop. So I'm trying to upload 2 to 3 times a week. I'm not sure if I've covered this workflow in this series yet, but I'm going to drop things over to something called Transpose Master. If you go up to Z plugin and come over here to Transpose Master and click on T-Pose Mesh. What this is going to do is it's going to make a separate tool with all of our subtools combined into one. So now if I click on Subtool, you'll see that all of our ones that were separate, our tongue and our decals and our body were all separate, but now it's combined them all and stuck them into one subtool so we can easily kind of work on everything together. Make sure that you hit X to turn on your symmetry, and let's mask out the head and the tongue area and kind of along the neck. We'll drop down our RGB intensity while holding control to kind of feather that mask. And this is just going to be so that we can kind of drop the head down a little bit. So, okay, so just invert your mask by control left clicking and tapping. And then let's reset our pivot by clicking this guy here. And then just drop everything down in Y. Maybe kind of scale things or push things back a little bit too. We'll come back here and then just kind of clean up the traps using the snake hook brush. So you can still use all your brushes while you're in transpose mode. The only things you don't want to do when in this mode is adjust your topology. You don't want to rerun a new Dynamesh. You don't want to run a Z-Remesh or Decimate or do any of that stuff, even though you guys probably don't know what that means just yet. But just make sure that you limit kind of what you do to just adjusting your pose overall. Looks like we've inadvertently kind of flattened out this guy, so what I'm going to do is Control Shift left click tap on just that spider thing, and then we'll come over here to inflate, and then with symmetry on continue to just kind of inflate that back out because we flattened it too much. We want it to have thickness so that when it shows up in the print, so that it will show up in the print. Okay, so Control Shift left click tap outside of the geometry, see where things are looking. And now if you'd like to A/B to see the changes between this and the old subtool, you can just click on this guy up here and kind of see, okay, so I think I'm definitely more in line with my concept now at this point. So now I want to send these changes all the way back to my other subtool parts, and so I can come over here while on this subtool that's all combined, we'll come back to Z plugin and click the other button on the right hand side, T-Pose, and then just click that guy, and it's going to send everything back over but retain your subtools separately. So it's made our changes. I love Transpose Master. I use it all the time. So now, just to remove all confusion, I'm going to come back to my transposed subtool and just hit delete all, just to get that out of the way. I like to keep my tools clean so that I'm working on the right one. We're not getting anything mixed up. It looks like maybe our feet aren't flat anymore. Something's happened there. Oh, never mind. I just wasn't snapped on the right to the right view. So, okay, cool. So now let's start wrapping this tongue around a phone. So I think what I'm going to do is first things first. I'm going to go up to my highest subdivision level and just delete the lower, and let's switch over to Dynamesh for now. Okay, so just hit Dynamesh and let's see what happens It might be a little bit too high poly, so let's drop it down just a smidge, and then re-Dynamesh. Sometimes you have to like perform some kind of operation on the mesh itself. Like right now, I'm just running a smooth and then re-Dynameshing to get it to actually work. I think it's kind of a bug that they've got going on that's probably no one's ever brought up, maybe. So, okay, so what we're gonna do first, let's get a phone in there, and then we can wrap the tongue around the phone. So let's append, come over here to append, and let's append a cube for now. Okay, and this cube, if I hit F to frame up, because it's real big, so our character is just, if you switch between, you'll see that and hit solo mode, your character is just fitting within that thing, so it's not gone or anything. Let's switch over to our scale tool and just kind of scale this into more of a shape of a phone. And we're not Steve Jobs, we're not trying to nitpick the shape just yet. We're not getting super careful about any of these these curves or anything like that on the phone. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to scale down overall. One thing to keep in mind when you're working, because we're going to move over to Dynamesh, and when you're working in Dynamesh, it's scale dependent. The resolution of your mesh is scale dependent, right? So if I scale this up huge and then I run a Dynamesh, like even on the lowest numbers, it's still going to be super high poly. And I kind of wish they would get away from that. I would love to be able to work in real world scale. I know that's just not very common within 3D softwares, but that's the dream. Anyway, so this is basically phone shape. Let's switch over to Dynamesh with a 128 resolution, probably too low. Go up to 488. And then we'll hold shift and just kind of smooth. Now Steve Jobs would be so proud of us because we're going to start to just smooth out our edges just a little. I'm going to come over here to the clip curve, holding control shift to switch that tool, making sure my symmetry is on with the dot on the other side over there. And just so I can teach you, let's say you don't have symmetry on, right? And you make the changes. Let's come over here. You make the change right here. So you curve this corner out just a little bit, just like you like. And you come down here, you curve this out as well. And you say, oh crap, I forgot to turn on my symmetry, right? So there's ways around this, and one way is you can come over here to modify topology, and then do a mirror and weld on X. You can change these different axes if you like. But do a mirror and weld, and boom, now it's gonna be perfectly symmetrical on either side. And there, like anything else, there's a few ways you can do that. But for now, I think that's good. And let's go ahead and just further detail this thing a little bit more and just add like the camera section. So right now I'm going to turn symmetry off because we just want the camera lenses on this one side over here. Make sure that your RGB intensity is set to 100 in this case. And then I'm just going to hold Control Alt to invert again, and then turn on my orthographic view and get this back side, make sure that that's not masked because your mask will project all the way through. And I want to blur these corners just a little bit, so I'm going to come over here to masking. You can either Control left click tap on the geo and it will blur, and hold Control Alt and then tap and it will sharpen. So again, that's so Control tap blurs, and then Control Alt tap sharpens. And you will use that a lot, so just keep that in mind. And then we're going to run a subtool, come down here to extract, and turn this down to like 0.009 and do an extract and hit accept. Okay, so that's popping out. Let's pop it out even more, because just remember, when we're printing really small, that detail is not going to carry very well. So let's pop that out. And then we're just going to merge this guy back down into the same subtool. So now the phone stuff is all one subtool. And then let's give him a camera lens. So let's come over here to Insert Mesh Primitive and click on that guy. And then up top here, you can drag this left to right. Let's select one of these cylinders, doesn't really matter which one, and just click and drag to the right size there. And then we'll switch over to our scale transform gizmo, and then scale that in this direction. Okay, and one fancy thing I'd like to share with you that I use all the time is a tool called Z-Modeler, okay? And this is a way of polygonally modeling, like as if you were in Maya or Blender doing a traditional polygonal modeling workflow. This is ZBrush's solution to that. So you come over here into your brushes and come down to Z-Modeler, or just type Z on your keyboard. and then M. So now we're using Z Modeler, okay? And now you'll notice as you mouse over the different parts of the geo, it says insert edge loop, or you get these different operations you can perform. There's Q mesh a polygon. If you mouse over revert, you can move the point. So now it's in move mode. And let's say we want to adjust those functions. What you can do is you hold spacebar on your keyboard while mousing over one of those edges, okay? And if you hold spacebar, it'll show you all the operations you can perform on that given edge. So now, right now, I'm set to insert, and the operation is, or the target is, single loop. Okay, so that's exactly what I want. So now if I click on that white edge and drag, I will insert an edge loop. And now, if you do the same thing, holding spacebar over while mousing over that edge, you can change it to multiple edge loops too. And this is a cool function. You just click and drag, and it'll just increase, or it'll just continue to create edge loops as you drag. So that's another option as well. Let's say we want to extrude this poly loop out so that it pops out a little bit better, like a typical camera lens. If I'm mousing over that edge, I can hit spacebar. Spacebar? My brain is not functioning today. Spacebar. Spacebar? Why does that sound so weird to me? Does that sound weird to you guys? Spacebar. Anyway, I'm moused over with that while holding the spacebar key. It's messing with my head right now. And then I'm going to hit polygroup, okay? And now the default target, all you can do is the poly loop target, so that's fine. So if we click and tap on that, it's going to change the polygroup to that different color. And now I can mouse over the face, the center of that face. And QMesh is cool, but it kind of has some bugginess to it. I'm going to go to extrude, and then I'm going to say polygroup all for the target, okay? And now if I click and drag on that, it'll extrude that out. So this is super powerful. I mean, I almost always, much of the time, if I'm making a production like animation ready mesh, I am diving back into Maya or cleaning up some poly loops and some verts and welding things in Vert. But you can do all of that in ZBrush theoretically. But if you're just trying to be quick and dirty and you want to just do some kind of polygonal workflow with inside ZBrush, it's totally doable. So right now I'm adding loops, insert single loops to these edges to kind of crease those when I hit subdivide. When I unmask everything and I hit Control D, it'll kind of hold that form a little bit better, right? Now we're getting some weird subdivisions on that inside loop. So if I hit Shift F and add another poly loop in here to help with the creasing, it'll look better. So now if I hit Shift F, it'll just be cleaner. I'm probably overanalyzing this because this is just going to be so tiny. But I just wanted to teach you guys that you can do a polygonal modeling workflow inside ZBrush. Okay, so I'm just doing an auto groups just to get everything in the same poly group. I'm going to Control select this guy, mask that guy, and then invert my selection so I just have this guy isolated. And then I'm going to turn on my Move tool, and I'm going to holding Control while clicking on this green arrow. Whoops, I think I have subdivision, so I have to delete my subdivisions here. And now holding Control, clicking on the green arrow, I can drag out another one just like that. And then holding Control, clicking on that white arrow, I can drag another one out just like that. So now we've got all the different lenses in there, and that's looking more like a cell phone. And that's all. That's great for now. I'm going to leave it. Excuse me. And now let's get this phone into place. Okay, so we just want this kind of like right in his face. Okay, so like right here, and then we'll like rotate it back just a little bit. And now let's start wrapping that. Let's add some thickness to it too, just for durability, to be safe. Okay. And then maybe we'll rotate it just ever so slightly. I'm going to center my pivot and then just rotate this guy so he's, kind of off center. And then just facing his face a little bit. Okay. So, all right, awesome. And I think the way to do this is it's gonna look a little bit crazy at first, but I think it's gonna be the best way to do it. So I'm gonna hit P to just switch into my orthographic view. Holding Control Shift, I'm gonna come over here to select lasso, and then drag a selection about right here and hold Alt to hide that selection, and just do a delete hidden, and then a close holes over here. Okay. So now we've just kind of sliced the tip of that tongue off, and we're just gonna start kind of making this have contact with the phone. for now. And the reason I'm doing this is because now I'm going to come over here to my brushes and go to Curve Tube Snap. Click on that guy. And now if I click on the point of this, the end of this tongue, remembering that the tube is going to be the diameter of the outer red circle, okay? So if I click on that guy and start dragging around the phone, it's going to snap to the phone, which is exactly what we want, okay? And now if I want to continue going with this, I can mouse over and see that when the red line appears and that little circle on the end turns green, or sorry, turns white actually, it looks like, I'm ready to continue on with that curve, okay? So let's see if we can wrap it around this phone. And it's not always perfect, but it gives me something, you know? It gives me something instead of just having to like use snake hook to just do this. Okay. And now from here I'm going to do something called curve tube, and I'm just going to do a test here because curve tube is not going to snap to the surface of the phone. It's just going to go on whatever axis that I'm on, like it follows the camera. So I'm going to click now using that, making sure that white circle is on the end of my joints, and then just dragging out like this. Actually, let's do this. Okay, so I know it doesn't look, whoops, that's interesting. So it snapped to some weird plane, so that's not going to work. Let's just switch back to our curve tube snap. Okay, so we'll just use curve tube snap. I'm gonna undo that because I just broke it, and then just add a little bit there for us to work with. Okay, now if I left click tap on there, it's gonna remove the rig aspect, and as you pulled it around, it kind of like sunk it into the edges. So let's just use our snake hook to kind of pull that guy back out. Okay, and then it got a little weird here in our contact point too. So let's turn on solo mode and kind of get this guy to the right size and shape so we can get that guy to fit properly. Okay, and then again we'll go back to our awesome move topological brush and start pulling the end of this around, and let's jump into Dynamesh mode at this point and just control left click drag as a rectangle, and then control left click drag again, and now we are living in Dynamesh, and you can see it's kind of connected our geometry all together. So now we've got this all as one, and I'm just running a smooth. You can use the snake hook brush and switch over to Sculptris Pro mode, and let's start getting this guy into place. And don't worry about the resolution dropping down from now. We're just trying to get things working. Turn off solo mode so we can, I think I want to turn off Sculptris Pro for a second here. And then kind of make it look like the tongue is gonna push like a button on the phone or something. Get this guy kind of out of the way because that's gonna be. And don't worry about it flattening out. We'll just run an inflate here in just a second to try and round everything out. We just want to make sure that the geo is doing what we want. Okay. And so now let's go over to inflate and inflate the tongue back out to where we want. Maybe just bigger overall. Okay, and let's rerun a Dynamesh here so we can get rid of the weird polygons going on. And again, just always be thinking of durability. Is this going to hold up when I'm snapping the supports off of our resin print? Am I going to have to deal with some super glue? I don't want to deal with super glue. I freaking hate it. I hate getting stuff on my hands. I'm a real baby like that. I'm not a real man. I'm a real tough guy. I don't like dirty hands. I don't like having super glue all over the place. So let's try and make this thing tough right now on the 3D side, because that's going to save us. It's going to allow us to maintain our sweaty salesman hands. Okay, and then just adding some more wrinkles in the tongue and kind of going along here. I'm going to hold Alt to get that kind of weird ridge, that we all have on our tongues from biting them all those years. That weird scarring kind of along the side of the tongue. Can only imagine what his would look like with his teeth, right? Okay. So just continuing to get crazy with it. Scaling up the draw size of my Damien Standard brush here, my fancy pants Damien Standard. Adding those wrinkles in. And then where it makes contact in here in the mouth, I'm going to add some, I think I'm going to come in here, switch over to my standard brush and come over here to the stroke, click on that and go to, let's do spray. And then change our alpha to like one of these other alphas, like maybe alpha 13, and see if that gives us some interesting little bumps on our tongue. You know how we get those, they're little taste buds. So let's add some taste buds here. And these are cool and all, but I think I want to spread those apart just a little bit. So I'm going to come over here to my stroke, come down to lazy mouse, switch my lazy step to 0. Actually, no, let's switch it up. We want to go up with that. And then our lazy radius just up a little bit too. So I don't know if that really did anything. Maybe not. I'm going to change my alpha to something smaller. Maybe one of these guys. There we go. Yeah, so that's spreading them out just a little bit more and then scaling my draw size down. And then running a smooth. So, interesting little taste buds now on the tongue. And again, we're still in Dynamesh land, which is all well and good. Okay, just keep running this all around. And using, I'm going to go back to clay buildup and do some more kind of medium-sized detailing here. Adding some more wrinkles in the tongue where it kind of bends around the edges of the phone. And you really have to just continue, I can't stress this enough, just accentuate those details. Really push them to the point where they just look almost kind of weird. Because when it's at 4 inches big or small, they're gonna show up a lot better. Constantly have to remind myself of this. Okay, Dynamesh, let's up our resolution a little bit to like 1300. Give us some more polys to work with. Okay, turn on solo mode, or off solo mode, I should say. And now we've got this dude holding the phone and tapping on it with his tongue. And we'll go back to topological brush and adjust these proportions just a little bit. Always thinking of durability here with the tongue, because that's going to be a breaking point on this particular character. And let's add some more interesting details here. I've been listening to this stuff on Spotify called binaural beats. Binaural, it's a type of music that's supposed to like help your brain to focus. For those of you that have ADHD like myself, I mean, I'm not 100% sure that I have it, but I'm pretty sure I have it. And it just helps me to focus on stuff, like not get sidetracked by TikTok or anything else, just to get my work done. And so anyways, it's just a pro tip for you. Again, it's binaural beats. Binaural music. Referring to your brain. Okay, cool. And one thing that I'm going to do just for absolute fun is come to deformation and do an inflate. Just a subtle inflate on there. And it really just helps to just increase or just kind of crease out those details. And just kind of gives it an interesting vibe. You can always come back here and run some more bumps along and maybe increase the intensity just a little bit. Just kind of add, you know, this guy's got to have a lot of taste. Imagine all the things he's tasting on this freaking tongue. It's like 10 feet long. How does his brain process that? I don't know. Marvel didn't think about that, I bet. Stanley. Okay. So now I think I'm just going to do a quick pass on sharpening up my muscle detail throughout the character, and just going in along, you know, the inset stuff and the stuff that comes out. I'm just holding Alt and then running like an H polish to try and just clean everything up just a little bit. And then because I've closed and reopened my Zbrush session, I lost my default smooth stronger brush. So I'm going to come back here and go to Lightbox Tools and go to Brushes and then Smooth Stronger, skip note, and now we have a stronger smooth brush. H polish again here. H polish again. And maybe we would add another wrinkle up here behind his elbow. And then do kind of an inflate. I love me an inflate brush. Damien Standard. Drop the intensity down just a little. And you'll notice if you're going real fast, you'll see kind of a stepping on it. That's why I always kind of like to run a smooth after the fact. And just ensuring that I had my symmetry on there, because that would have been a little bit problematic if not. Refining the elbow area. And using this snake hook to just kind of make a better profile up here. Getting rid of this weird lump. And then let's crease down the bottom part of that bicep. And still not happy with what's going on in this armpit area, so let's Damien Standard that guy to death. And then H polish again. Cool. Okay. So now let's start refining these ribs. It's a little bit tricky because our things get in the way here, but we'll just turn on solo mode and come back in here. And then alternate it kind of in and out with our detailing. And same here with our abs. I should give him a big old belly button, but I don't want to imply any nudity here, so I'm not going to do that. And just come back around along that pectoralis. And then it looks like we lost our little divot here from our collarbone. So let's recreate that guy. And then switching back to the freehand, turning off our alpha, turning off our lazy mouse for the standard brush, and just dropping our intensity down just a little, just to pop that guy out just a little bit. Okay, and let's actually add like kind of a, a little bit like a, something like that. And go down the center here. And get these striations of these things that kind of come down here and tuck in. Get those guys coming back. Yeah, sometimes you just lose detail, as you're working on things, and you just gotta bring it back, and just the way it goes. You need to get angry about it. And sometimes you lose work too, and it's really frustrating. It feels good to curse and swear and be mad, but in the end, you just get better as an artist as you redo your work. Just get better and better. So I'm learning that as I get older. I still get mad, still get real angry about things when I have to redo things, but can't stop it. Okay, so let's add some sharpness maybe to right here and see how that looks. And sometimes it just doesn't work, but I think there's a couple of muscles. It's like 4 or 5 muscles here on the shoulder here that I follow this guy on TikTok who goes through. He actually shows you human cadavers and their muscle structure and all that stuff. And if you don't have a weak stomach, it is an awesome channel. I'd have to figure out what it's called. Because man, he just opens up. I think there's a little muscle here too that kind of comes in that really big guys have. Guys and gals, I should say. and trying to add that. Okay, is there something there? Sick. Okay, and now let's continue to sharpen things down below here. Definitely sharpen up these quads. This one comes up. The one on the inside kind of drops down a little bit further, right along the top of the knee, and then this one out here kind of just hangs back a little bit taller, a little bit up higher. And you'll notice that about human anatomy as you study is that the muscles are all kind of alternated. You know, once this one's not over here, it's not perfectly symmetrical. It's going to be up top here so that it can kind of counter what's going on over here. And the human body is an incredible thing. Yeah, so I'm not going to accentuate that bulge too much because we're going to keep this G-rated. Pull these guys in just a little, and maybe a few too many wrinkles down here, so let's do a few. I tend to overdo everything. I tend to overdo my wrinkling and my veins and all my details, but sometimes it's cooler to do fewer and stylize those than it is to do, you know, a billion wrinkles. So just like really lock down the 1, 2, or 3 wrinkles that you got there, and then just minimize the repetition on these. And I've always been a victim to that. I've been like, more wrinkles, more veins. So I'm just going to come around here to the side. And again, we're kind of trying to achieve the V shapes that we see all throughout human muscles. And we are about 30 minutes into refining this guy, so I think I might take it a little bit easy on him, and maybe just for this video, this will just be another video just for Venom, and we're going to have a lot of videos in this series. I hope that's okay. Just kind of adding some stretching in here. I can get lost in the anatomy. So I'm going to add some spine detail kind of coming in and smooth stuff back just a little bit. Just a little bit, a subtle hint of spine. And smoothing out this crack area. Again, we're not getting too graphic with that. And then I think there's a muscle up here somewhere that does something. I mean, I don't know. This is where I kind of get lost, is in the back muscles. And there's this giant muscle right here. The lats, I think they're called. And then kind of come down into a big old V shape. Surprise, surprise. And like, he's not like super, I mean he's ripped, but you know, he's got a little bit of flab kind of swinging around the side. Okay. And then I think I'm going to refine these teeth just a little bit too. We'll take another. One thing I like to do with teeth is turn off solo mode. Let's see how everything's looking together. Pretty happy with this guy. Switching between perspective and go back to our 24 because I like the way that looks. I'm going to do a save as and just version up my file just to be safe. And because we played with transpose mode, your save button is not going to work properly. So make sure you do a save as and then repath back to where you need to be. And now if you were to do transpose stuff, then it would work fine. So I think that's a bug that they just need to work through over at Maxon. One thing I was going to do here is I'm going to come in here with the teeth, and I kind of want to isolate the teeth. I'm going to hit Control W to make everything one polygroup. So I'm going to lose all these other polygroups, which is fine. So Control W to polygroup everything that's visible within your subtool. And I'm going to isolate these teeth into separate subtools so that I can work on them and then kind of move the geo around those. It's just going to be an easier workflow. So I'm going to have symmetry on and then hold Control while running a mask on those and just start painting those teeth with my mask. Turn Shift F, turn the polyframe off. Okay, so I'm just making, just masking these guys off. Make sure you get the inside too. It's going to be tricky to kind of get in there, but do what you got to do. Okay. Grabbing these. Make sure that there's, it's going to be helpful if they're separate, so make sure that there's no contacts there. Just come all the way through and get the insides. Okay, and the sides. You don't have to be super nitpicky about this because we'll clean these up later. Hit Shift F, and now if I hit Control W, it'll just polygroup the masked stuff that we just masked. So if I Control Shift left click tap on that yellow polygroup and come over here to split and then do a split hidden, it'll drop these down to their own subtool. And we don't want them to be hollow, so we're going to just re-Dynamesh, Control left click drag, and we don't want these contact points, so we're going to use our select lasso and then hit Alt to invert that selection and make sure that these are all separate, okay? And then make sure you come down here again to Geometry, Modify Topology, Delete Hidden, and then run a re-Dynamesh, okay? And now let's up our resolution on our Dynamesh just a smidge. And then do a smooth real quick on those and then re-Dynamesh. We want more resolution than that even, so we'll do another smooth and a re-Dynamesh. And now I think we're getting the resolution that we want, but let's Control W to put those all in the same poly group, okay? And we're gonna do a inflate to kind of clean up some of these weird edges down here. So I'm just doing a smooth still to clean things up, and then I'm gonna do an inflate, just like a 1 inflate on those, and then smooth them back, okay? So we're getting the roundness, and we're also cleaning up the weird edges, and then rerun another Dynamesh. Whoops, this guy didn't like that. Sometimes it does wonky things. You just have to smooth and then re-Dynamesh again. Okay, so you might be thinking we went backwards, right? We kind of made these a weirder shape, but the nice thing is we can always just come back, you know, and use our snake hook and pull these back to points. But we got these in a separate subtool now, and now we can modify our gum geo around these much more easily when we get to that. So, okay, so we've got some nice pointy teeth here, and if you'd like, you could actually use the Damien standard. You could just start carving in some interesting little details here. And again, I'm working with symmetry, but sometimes with teeth it might be kind of cool to get out of symmetry mode. So, you know, one on the left is a little bit longer or sharper than the one on the right. That's always a good idea once you're moving into your final modeling phase. Just turn off solo mode, and then I think we have our other subtools all off. So let's hit Shift and then left click on that eye. It'll turn on all of our other subtools. Alt left click on our body geo and then rerun a Dynamesh to close the holes on the gums. And then let's make sure we hit save on our button over here, and we'll come back here now, and now this way we can start using like the clay buildup brush to modify our gums and kind of make some interesting little contact points with those teeth. And it's not going to modify our teeth are going to maintain their shape, which is exactly what we wanted. It's very, very helpful. Just kind of pushing my gum line up a little bit. I like the look of that. So let's keep pushing that using the Damien standard. My son's playing basketball in his room. I wonder if you can hear all that pounding and all that racket. He's my one that makes a lot of racket. He's just like me when I was a kid. I was the crazy one. Can you imagine that? Me being crazy. Okay, so we've got now some better lip detail and some gum detail coming in down here using the Damien standard again to just like kind of push things back into place, and mix of the standard brush, Damien standard brush, and smooth, and get this guy in a good spot. So okay, I'm just doing an inflate now to inflate the gum line just a little bit, hitting solo mode to make sure that things are coming on the inside of the mouth. And we got some weird stuff going on here with some of this. And so you can just hold Shift and smooth some of this back. And you see these different points that are floating. Once we re-Dynamesh, a lot of those points are going to go away. So Dynamesh actually does delete floating points for you if there's only a few points out there like floating. Okay, cool. So now our teeth are really sitting in there nicely, which I'm happy with. And it's kind of biting into his tongue, so maybe we'll just like come in here and just scoot those teeth up just a little bit so they're not like so aggressively biting in there. And I kind of want his teeth to be just bigger overall, so I'm going to go with my inflate brush and just inflate those again. Just remember, they're still going to be pointy when you print this guy at scale. Going back to the gums and getting those back into place. You kind of like the teeth crawling up the gum line a little bit more. It's kind of cool. All right, awesome. Okay, so I think Venom is in a pretty good spot. Let's just looking at this. Let's clean up this little area right down here a little bit. So you do have these interesting little muscles that kind of wrap around the side right here. Kind of go like this. I'm not realizing that very well. So clay build-up brush, they kind of wrap around just like that. But let's pull our bicep down into that area just a little. Okay, and then use our Damien standard to carve that guy in. And just continuing to figure this guy out. Just remember, we're trying to achieve those kind of points, that triangular sharp points in some of our muscle detail. I think that's adding some good interest. Okay. All right, sweet. So let's hit save. And let's do a little bit of refining on this guy now. So I think one thing we want to try first is come over here to geometry and make sure that Dynamesh is active. Okay, and you'll notice that our resolution is way too low, so let's crank that to 1000 or so. And one thing you can do is hit polish on this, and it'll do kind of a broad polishing along your geo. Sometimes this is awesome for hard surface type stuff. You'll notice that it kind of like does some interesting thing with your edges, and we lost some of the sharpness that we got in our core area, so let's try and get some of that back. We're just going to have to kind of go in with the Damien standard and reintroduce some of this. Okay, so just kind of doing the same thing. Ideally, you would have refined your details and figured this all out, and then done your mesh extract, you know, off of your final detailing. But I like to do things the hard way generally. So, welcome to Tyson land. Welcome to my world. That's how I roll. So, just kind of going over this and figuring this stuff out. And you could try this fun thing. I'm gonna hit save for now. You could use your Damien standard and hold Alt and come out with this and kind of run along this like that, and it'll add like an interesting, like it'll pop that stuff out if you wanted. I'm kind of getting excited to switch over to Spidey at this point, and we can still continue to detail as we move along. So I think I'm just going to move on from Venom and hop into the next portion with Spiderman. I think Venom is in a good spot. Got his tongue in there and he's checking out his phone, and fairly happy with this guy. So let's refine this shape just a little bit because I like to nitpick as much as possible. And I think he actually had, you know, he has this little tiny hole where he shoots his webbing out of, so let's add that guy right here and then push in, so right here using the Damien standard and clay buildup. Okay, get this little thing where he pops that web out of. Maybe we'll just add some little like points right there. And then I think I'm going to do an overall inflate, just so we're accentuating the details. And then I'm going to actually come in here with my H polish and just kind of polish some of these edges and see what that does. And then smooth out some of these little points. And we rerun a Dynamesh, that'll clean up a lot of it. And remember, we have polish on, so that's going to clean up a lot of stuff. Polish can be great for some things, but sometimes you'll lose a lot of detail running a polish. So just be aware of that. More often than not, though, I like the results of having that polish on. So just sharpening my points. Make sure stuff is intersecting equidistantly, if that's the right way to use that word. Trying to sound smart. Okay, and let's pop his eyes in just a little bit. Okay, nice. And then these guys are getting very inflatey. This guy looks goofy. And if I turn on solo mode, Control Shift, lasso, switch over to red, and then invert that and just get rid of that little contact point. Delete hidden, close hole. And just let's refine these little shapes. Turn off solo. Okay, cool. Cool. This guy's looking very inflaty right here along the shoulder, so let's take our H polish and run that along the top of that to flatten that guy out. Very nice. Snake hook. Add this point back in. Make sure that it's lining up kind of with our anatomy. And this guy's also looking very inflaty, so we will use the H polish and run that along the top of that. H polish is your friend, never forget that. He's always a friend. And you see, because we adjusted our back detailing, we've got to really should have done this after. Extracted this detailing after we did all the adjustments to our anatomy. But it'll just take a few seconds here, and let's just pull these guys back out. Okay, so now get this in place. A little better, a little bit. A little bit wobbly, wobblies. Spin these guys up. I'd love to have traps like that. My wife would never let me though. She thinks they're gross. Just have no neck at all. Okay. Alright, I think we're going to call it on Venom for the time being and then move on to Spidey in the next video. Again, let me know where you guys hit any roadblocks, where my instruction failed you, how I can get better in the comments. Just get involved. And you know, I've seen a lot of stuff going around about Blender and their modeling tools. I personally haven't opened up Blender. I've just been working in Maya and Zbrush throughout my career, and that's kind of been my workflow. But I hear good things, especially for it being a free software. So that's kind of cool. Has anyone used that? You find anything superior to Zbrush with the Blender workflow? I'm interested to hear. So okay, we'll call it. I'm gonna stop. I'm stopping. I'm stopping. Okay, in the next video, for sure, we're moving on to Spidey, and it's going to be a very similar workflow to how we did our Venom character. So we'll start with the Nick Z human male, and then get the proportions right. He's going to be much more slender, but we're going to have some interesting detailing with the webbing on his, and I'm excited to give a try. So Anyway, hitting save. Be sure to save and always version up your file. It's snowing here. Is it snowing where you guys are at? It's really coming down out here in Utah land. Anyway, yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.